It takes time to embed a proper culture, but culture, they always say, it's even more important than strategy. If you got the right culture, then strategy becomes a lot easier to implement.
Hi, I'm Lennox Wasara. Welcome to the LeadUP Podcast. We continue to highlight stories from alumni from the University of Pretoria. Today I'm joined by somebody who has a lot of pull and force in the financial space in South Africa. Izak Smit is currently the Group Chief Executive at PPS, which is one of the remaining mutual insurers in the country. He's previously held senior positions at Absa, Sanlam and Citadel. Interestingly, he completed his actuarial training in Stellenbosch and then moved over to the University of Pretoria to complete his BCom Honours in economics. He's truly been an incredible force within the faculty, giving back, but also he is encouraged by the fact that he's got a life of balance. He does enjoy cycling, running and swimming, amongst other things, as well as mountain climbing. So very excited to chat to him. Isak, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lennox. Yeah, pleasure to be here.
Let's start from the beginning. Like, how got you to financial services?
So I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do after school, but eventually I decided on a BCom, mathematics. So more the actuarial route, as they say, for my sins. It's a tough route. But qualified as an actuary mid-90s, and yeah, pretty much that means you are smack bang in financial services.
You completed your actuarial training in Stellenbosch, and then you decided to come to the University of Pretoria to do your BCom Honours in economics, which is not easy. And you also did a strategy qualification at Oxford. So speaking more to lifelong learning being something that you truly believe in.
So I grew up in Cape Town. Usually Cape Townians don't want to leave Cape Town. They want to stay there. But we came up north mid-90s. We thought it would be just for a year or two, but I guess we just loved Pretoria so much. That is where we were for about 10 years. And we never went back. Currently now, of course, living in Johannesburg. Yeah, that is why end of the 90s I pursued that honours degree at Tuks. I also lectured at the time a little bit.
Okay.
I'm a lecturer, and I also was part of the running club as well. So,
all right.
Yeah, so there's a strong Tuks connection there.
I still think that running club still exists, still going strong. And then to walk us through just in terms of like your role, you've went from being in leadership roles at Absa, Sanlam and Citadel, and then now currently at PPS. I mean, there's a lot of richness in those roles and probably a lot of learnings that you've had over the years. Are there any that come to mind?
So I started at Sanlam. I had a Sanlam bursary, so I worked that off. That is when we decided to come to Pretoria. I joined what was actually not Citadel yet. They were a very small firm. I think my colleagues at Sanlam thought I was crazy to join this little, but we just wanted to spread our wings. Stayed at Citadel for long. Very, very nice phase of my career. And that was kind of probably also the phase where I was exposed a bit more wider than only the technical aspect of actuarial. So managing teams, engaging with front-end clients. It's new dimensions almost that you have to learn new skills, but enjoyed that very much. Then moved to Absa for about 11 years. Again, starting in the actuarial space, but eventually having to manage businesses. And then in 2016, joining PPS in my current role.
A lot of people talk about finding their dream job. A lot of people want to be athletes and different things, and maybe superstars and sing and be in the art space. But you speak about your current role as being your dream job. What about it makes it have so much gravitas that you would give it that title, that this is actually your dream job?
I think the thing is just that the impact we can have. Look, we at PPS, our market segment that we focus on is the professionals in South Africa. We've got about 150,000 of them. That's product members, as we call them, have got our products. It's a lovely market segment to work with. Professionals are really the movers and shakers in the world. They are the people who invent new things and build things and serves justice and education, all of that. So the impact, I always say PPS is small. It's not a big corporate like the big banks or so, but it's big enough to have real impact. And it's in my role, of course, we cover the spectrum of financial services. So it's not only life insurance or income protection, it's also investments, it's also short-term insurance and so on. So there's that. And then we also operate in some overseas countries. So there's that aspect as well. But the wonderful team that we have at PPS, it's nice if colleagues become your friends. And yeah, I love my job.
one of the things people say is that they don't leave their jobs because of the work itself, but because of bad people. And one of the reasons people stay there is because of good people. So what culture have you been shaping as a head there?
I always say to the new people joining us, culture is not only the leader's job. Leader has got a special responsibility, but everybody in a team can influence the culture. If you're a member of a team, you can help to do that. I always tell them, don't neglect that. Don't disempower yourself, But that kind of speaks to the culture that we want to embed. And I think we believe we have embedded at PPS. It's a very open culture, open with information. It's very flat. We don't like hierarchies.
Okay.
We don't like it when people think they are important.
Open door policy.
So every job is important.
Yeah.
So from the person opening the gate, to whatever technical job or leadership role you have. We actually want everybody to be leaders as well. So it's a fairly flat organization, and we want people to feel empowered and they can do their thing. So it is not so much I would guess a hierarchical command and control environment. It's really, we welcome it when people just want to do their thing and excel in their jobs.
Because the whole idea of really, like you're saying, owning the culture is that, leadership is more like leading yourself first before you can lead others. But in the idea of leading yourself, sometimes it's not the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, sometimes the toughest person to lead is that guy in the middle, right? But look, I just said it's nice if colleagues also become friends, and I think that is important in teams. Culture is a thing that you just don't switch on and off like a light bulb. It's trust that you create with each other, doing small things, standing in for each other, and it's a bit of a input-output thing. What you always say, if you want the world to smile at you, smile. It's going to smile back. Greet, it's going to greet back. If you respect other people's inboxes, they'll respect yours. If you stand in for somebody who needs assistance, they're going to look for 10 reasons to return the favor. So that's kind of also it takes time to embed a proper culture. But culture, they always say, it's even more important than strategy. If you got the right culture, then strategy becomes a lot easier to implement.
I heard somebody say once that we tend to judge people based on their actions, and we judge ourselves based on our intentions. And sometimes in the work dynamics, it could be a sense of perhaps accountability, which is perceived the wrong way. And sometimes, they talk about don't play the man, play the ball. How do you then shape culture whilst still being accountable, while still getting people in line, while still doing all those things without culture sort of dissipating?
It's important that people understand what their jobs are. You must have clarity about that and what good performance is and not. So culture can be a bit more like a family. We help each other, we stand in for each other, and there's elements there that's great. During the COVID years, that was important, to support each other. But you can also use the metaphor of a sport team. Eventually, you want the team to win. You want the best guys in the particular positions. So I guess a good culture is a bit of a blend of a sport team, and we're serious about performance and what are the goals that we pursue and are we going to get there. But obviously there is that bit of a softer element. We don't want it to be a fear culture where people must enjoy what they do. And if they do that, then I guess that creates a nice platform for performance as well.
Winning is what PPS is very good at because you're still one of the, I think, last remaining mutual insurers, because as far as I understand, it means that you're not on the JSE, you're not listed on the JSE, so it means all the profits that would accrue to your clientele, your members who have certain products. So walk us through why that's so important in this day and age in South Africa.
Yeah, spot on.
Yeah.
You've described mutuality very, very, very well. It's very interesting. I think most insurance organizations started off centuries ago as mutuals. It's usually a community coming together and say, hey man, we've got a problem if a certain event happens or so on, we can wipe ourselves out. So let's pool together and help each other. So it was usually mutuals. A lot of those businesses demutualized over the years. They became stock companies. Now, PPS, we have been around now for 84 years. We were founded in 1941. Interesting time to found a new business because it's during a World War. Founded by a couple of dentists. Interesting, they didn't call it a dental providence society. It's always the professional providence society. So they probably anticipated that other professionals also to join. It was a mutual founded along mutual principles. And yes, as you say, we are the few in South Africa that still operate under that ethos. Most of the other big mutuals like Sanlam and Old Mutual, they demutualized about a quarter of a century ago. We are wedded to mutuality.
Yeah.
It's a lovely model. I always joke it makes my job easier. I don't have to worry about analysts and I don't have certain shareholder stock. But yeah, our members basically, all the profit that eventually that we return to them. So it's a real nice model and it has worked for us and it has worked for our members. It has actually created a lot of wealth for them.
I saw some interesting scenarios on your website last night when I was looking at how the scenarios play out for different members. It was quite lucrative for them. Then I thought, for once you're still mutual, some of the other ones that have demutualized, if we were to compare, do you think your members are more loyal to you as compared to those that have demutualized because of your business model?
I would think so. There's a couple of things there. First of all, we don't even call we call them members. We don't call them customers or clients. They are members. They can also vote amongst them who must serve on our board and they can influence our strategy. As we say, all the profit eventually goes back to them. In fact, all the premiums that they pay for insurance eventually gets returned to them with investment returns. The only money that doesn't go back to them is the expenses of managing the business, but either as a claim or as profit share. And for the youngsters who join us these days, those profit share accounts eventually build up and typically to a couple of million by the time they would retire one day. It's not going to be enough to retire on, but it can certainly plug a hole in terms of their retirement planning.
Yeah, for sure. And then when you talk about just the growth in the business, you mentioned earlier that you have a presence in different countries as well. Are you seeing more of a global opportunity for this approach to insurance as compared to in other countries?
Yes, so a bit of history. Most of our focus was always on income protection for the biggest part of our history. But at the turn of the century, my predecessor said, "Look, man, we can start offering other life value propositions as well. So life cover, disability, critical illness, those kind of things." And then he started our investment business in 2007. Again, an interesting time to start the business. That was the Great Recession. But we started that and the later short-term insurance. So we increased the scope of what we do, but always that focus on the market segment, on the professionals. Mm-hmm. And then the idea of actually going overseas was before my time, but apparently it was at the time of the World Cup. Again, my predecessor, Mike Jackson, he knew some people in Australia and he said, "Look, man, what about us doing something that part of the world?" And eventually they developed a business plan, 2012, which our board okayed, and we started building a team and started writing business in 2016. Today, Australia, we've got 15,000 members in Australia. It's now a solid business there, growing nicely, loved by the independent advisors. We've now for 3 years in a row been rated the best life office there.
Oh, wow.
And if you are in Australia, it's time difference, 8 hours, sometimes 9 hours ahead of us. We thought, well, if you're in Australia, that part of the world, how about New Zealand next door, which is a much smaller country. But we've pursued a license there and got approval a couple of months ago, so started writing business in that part of the world. It is a heavily regulated business, and rightly so. Financial services, banks, insurance businesses. You're working with other people's money, other people's data, so it needs to be heavily regulated. So to get a license is a interesting journey. It's a tough journey. There's also a lot of capital that you need to hold. So in terms of your question, other parts of the world, it will probably be a couple of years before we again pursue a license in yet another country.
How long does it actually take when you start, trying to pursue a new market, when you go from proposing the business model to your board and then perhaps entering the market? Like, how long is that journey? So
if New Zealand is an example, we got approval from our board in principle to go there in 2022, just after COVID. In fact, we did research before COVID, but then COVID happened and then everything stalled. So I guess we were one of the first people in there after COVID when New Zealand's borders opened up. And you arrive there and you say, "Look, now I need to smell the air and, just acclimatize and and then you have to now start figuring out, all right, what are you going to do and exactly what the distribution strategy is going to be." That's the most important piece of the whole thing, because in financial services, our products are mostly sold, not bought. Banking products are bought. It's joy first, pain later. You want that car or whatever, and then you have to pay it off.
Yeah, over time.
With us, it's premium, and then if claims event happen, it's so distribution is extremely important in our world. And then it starts building a team. You have to find a CEO. That CEO needs to build his or her executive team. You usually have a headhunter to assist you and so on. And then is that journey with the regulators to pursue a license. It's a lot of money before you write your first policy.
Exactly.
So it is a journey. But as I say, it took us then about 3 years. And we're now in the market. So quite exciting.
Yeah, that's exciting. So far, we've established a few things. You've made it clear that the business is very resilient. Started in World War and then started to pivot again in about the recession in 2007. And also realized in our conversation that you're also an incredibly resilient person as well, because you've taken up some interesting challenges in your life, like mountain climbing with your son. Walk us through how that also aids your sort of performance in the corporate space.
Performance, eventually you need to have a balance in life. People often say work-life balance. That's a simplification. It's more than that. It's your family, it's the work environment, call it financial if you want. It's the social environment, your friends and the community you are in, and then your physical, you want to at least be healthy and spiritual, etc. And I think most of us forever, it remains a perpetual journey to try to balance all these things. And I don't think any one of us can ever say we've arrived and it's perfect and we'll stay that way. Must always be conscious of that balance. So from a health perspective, I think it's about habits, just so that early in the morning, I try to put half an hour away and just do something. I get bored if it's only one thing. So sometimes run a bit, sometimes swim a bit or so on. I guess that is where the triathlon thing happened. It's just that I was cycling a bit and running a bit and swimming. And my boys push their dad now.
Good.
They both are Tuks.
That's cool, yeah.
Especially the youngster. He rose for Tuks in the second team. He said he couldn't do first team because he's studying accounting. He's third year accounting. So to commit to the first Cox 8s is a heavy training schedule every week. So he's in the second, which is a bit less hectic. And he challenged his dad, his old man this year, to do the Ironman with him. So, so we did that.
How was that experience?
It was nice. It was all about him, finishing, and he did well. He ended up on the podium. I knew I wasn't good enough for that stuff, so I just wanted to complete the race and have fun. But
also, listening to you, it sounds like fatherhood is very important to you.
Yeah, I'm blessed with these two. So my oldest one is now finishing off at his master's in engineering. We took them to a couple of campuses. So we took them down to Cape Town. We said we're open-minded about it. You guys choose. But silently, we were so glad when they eventually decided on Pretoria. And I think it was for a few reasons. One is that in their study directions, engineering, accounting, Tuks is just right up there. And I can say that from work experience, the quality of the students that we get, engineers. The CA program is just phenomenal. The statistics show it, every year. So I think in the schools, in their study direction, they chose very well. I think the fact that it is fairly close to home, but still far enough. They've got their own life and they had a wonderful student experience at Pretoria. Now and then coming home and there's that. So it was for us, I'm so glad they didn't choose the Cape Town universities, because that's obviously a challenge in terms of travel and I think even expensive. So accommodation and things is just easier on the pocket in Pretoria than it is, for example, in Stellenbosch.
You've not only been like graduate at the University of Pretoria, but also your kids are there now. But you've also been an incredible contributor to the Economic and Management Science faculty. Just tell us some of the initiatives you've been involved in there, giving back through your contributions.
So at PPS, we're very privileged. We are strong across tertiary campuses in South Africa. It's a privilege. We realize that it's earned over time. It's long relationships, some of it over decades that we've built. Because remember, professional, Providence Society, professional, it's about education. So education, it's so important in our world. And where does that happen to a large extent at the tertiary campuses? So it was for us always very important to stay close to educational institutions, a lot of our members would say, look, when I qualified or when I completed my honours degree, that is how I joined PPS, because you need to be eligible. And it was like one of the things I'm proud of. When I completed my honours, I was eligible for PPS and hence become a member. So yes, we try to support. We support in various ways. Of course, funding bursaries.
Wonderful.
There's quite a number that we put in there, but I always say there's so much to do. And my dream one day is like our membership, if members can fund more students. I think the trick there is to make it personal, to connect them personally. In other words, to create a platform where students who need funding can put up perhaps their story and their picture and their situation and their CV and so on. And then members, I think that's the way to scale it to thousands of members who can perhaps contribute as well. Because people want, I think, to give it just in a pool and so on, it's good. But if it can be quite personal, that's the kid I'm helping, it makes it quite special. So bursaries is one. Yeah. But then often also faculties or departments might need funding for something, a lab or some particular project. And we like to be involved with that as well. And then, of course, also at the University of Pretoria, there's now a new chair that we are sponsoring. So we also contribute in that way.
I'm glad you're still in touch with the young people, and just as you observed, just the trends. People are very different from many years ago. This generation is very different. The TikTok generation. What is your advice to them in terms of like those who are interested in a career and pursuing in finance? What would you say to them? Yeah,
look, I think this generation is a wonderful generation. If I look back, our generation, 30 years, whatever ago. Sure, we were naughty, man. We were not so responsible and so on. The kids today is just amazing. I think the world they grow up is perhaps more challenging. I think we probably grew up in an easier environment. It was much more simple. Things didn't progress so quickly and so on. Yeah, my advice would be to the youngsters, first of all, try get a good mentor if you can, and more than one. Your network is important, and your network is not necessarily people much older than you. It's often your mates, Those are the people who's going to carry you through life. They are going to end up in certain environments and positions that might open doors for you. And maybe the third one is just keep investing in yourself in some or other way. In other words, read maybe now and then that personal development book, or listen to the podcast, or watch something. But don't neglect yourself and think, it's basically the formal education part of it that you receive at university or even at work. There's also the bit that each of us, must always think, where do I want to improve a bit, or what interesting thing is there that I can become a better person by December than what I was in January.
Well, something interesting that I picked up when you walked into the room was that, there's a sense of optimism, there's a sense of hope, there's a sense of positivity that you carry, and kind of wanted to dig a little bit as to where that actually comes from, because it's quite tangible.
Tuks, we spoke about mentorship earlier. I once had a mentor who said that has always stayed with me. Negative people don't accomplish really big things. If you think about the big inventors, the big people successful in businesses who've built businesses and so on, they are optimists. And often it's easy to kind of fall into a bit of a negative spiral and so on. So one must be careful with that. What's the energy you surround yourself? What's the things you consume? What's the news you read? What's your friends and so on? So I think if you're conscious about what you allow into your space and into your life, that helps. But at PPS, maybe to bring it back to the work side also, we always say we're a positive bunch. In every challenge, there is often an opportunity. I've mentioned earlier, we were founded in a war. One of our other businesses was founded in the big recession, our investments business. In fact, we had an insurance business that was founded when that particular market they operated in was in total distress. It's often the times our members come to us and say, can you assist? Can you help? And then we investigate it. But and those are successful businesses. So it shows that in a challenge, there's often an opportunity.
Yeah.
And look, it's just nicer to be in life and from an optimistic perspective than to be negative. Eh?
Yeah, certainly taking a note or two out of your rule book there. But in terms of like the business side of it, I mean, looking at just the business environment for the last maybe 2 years, I'd say there's been lots of geopolitical tensions. There's also been lots of advancements in technology, AI coming to the fore, reshaping how we work with technology, and also just rethinking how we should imagine the future as well. But, as for PPS, with this backdrop in mind, what's next for the business, considering that perhaps the future is quite uncertain?
Yeah, so a few things there. First of all, it's not only the last 3 years. I always joke and I say my whole 9 years in this role was a fairly flat growth environment. I envy those CEOs who can operate in a big growth environments. Coming back to the point that look for the opportunity. Yes, it's easy to get frustrated about, things are what they are, often from a government side, things don't happen, don't pursue the policies that they often talk about, but there's no follow through on that and so on, so on, so on. Easy to get negative. But that is where I mentioned earlier that at PPS, we begin small enough to have try to keep it a small place. Small place is always nice and so on, but big enough to have impact. I think given our the scale that we can operate, we say there's a lot that we as a business can do. For example, back to education. What can we do to move the dial there, maybe through our members, ourselves as a business? So those are wonderful opportunities. And I think in terms of making change, education is just such a big one. I think that's almost like the key that's going to unlock so many opportunities for youngsters and also economic growth for all of us.
You've had quite a remarkable story that you've also told in the show here. Just wondering if you were to go back down memory lane, is there one thing you would change, one piece of advice you would give yourself?
I think there's always a couple of small things, should not have invested in that thing or whatever. But I think overall, not that much that I would change. I think it was Steve Jobs who once said, it's sometimes you don't understand why things happen, but afterwards you can connect the dots. Sometimes you're a bit in a dead end and afterwards you can say, all right, that was a mistake, I shouldn't have, I wasted their money or I wasted the time, whatever. But then often that experience help you later, and then you say, now I understand why that had to happen. I picked up something there that was very valuable. So I think even the disappointments in life, the real bad mistakes that we make, take the lesson from it. It's valuable. And I mean, nobody can lead perfect lives. That's just impossible. But often when you connect the dots later, you understand it. And you look back and you say, look, it's not, perhaps wasn't that bad after all.
The sun will rise again. But just final thoughts from our side. I mean, I know you spent a lot of time on the Hatfield campus back in the day, and we right here at Gibbs faculty here, the business school. And just what are some of the memories you've had back in the day when you think of the University of Pretoria? I know you do visit your sons quite a bit there, but back in the day when you're doing your BCom Honours, what's some thoughts that come to mind? I
spread my honours over a few years. It was at the turn of the century, so it is now a quarter of a century ago. It's very interesting when I now go back to campus, how the trees are just bigger and the gardens are bigger and the campus is just so beautiful. But I think a lot of it is the same. Students are students. They are young. They enjoy. They develop themselves and so on. In that respect, nothing have changed. And if I compare my Tuks years with a decade before that, when I was at Marty's, a lot of it was so the same. There's that nice thing after a tough exam, you have a beer with your mates in the pub, and it's just great. You do what students like to do. You mentioned earlier also, I was very privileged to do a couple of years later, actually at the Said Business School at Oxford, a program. And at that stage, most of us were now like early 40s and so on, mid 40s even. Same thing.
Yeah.
We had our beers, we had our fun. And it was fantastic, students, my students, and my advice maybe is just, enjoy every phase in life. Life is phases, and don't miss out on a phase, have a ball and obviously just keep the focus on what you are there to achieve, to back that qualification, whatever it is that you pursue.
Yeah, very important. Safe to say we're going to have a beer after the show. But thank you for joining us on the show today. I appreciated much of what you said and just sharing your journey with us and our audience. Really appreciate it.
Thanks. Pleasure. Yeah.
That's Izak Smit. He's currently the Group Chief Executive at PPS, certainly sharing a heartfelt story about the impact the University of Pretoria in his life and how it shaped him to be the executive he is today. But beyond that, passing the baton to his family, his sons also going through to the University of Pretoria as well, and sharing the impact of how business should remain relevant but also impactful in everything that they do. So really encouraged by the fact that he's so positive. I really felt his positive energy throughout the show. And if you are curious about the show, we're available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. For more information, visit up.ac/leadup, and we'll be dropping more episodes over there. And as always, our production team is Maropa Communications, and this podcast is proudly brought to you by the University of Pretoria's Alumni Relations Office. Our head of content is Dr. Samantha Castle, and our head of content production is Arna Schutz. And of course, it's nothing but love and light on that side. We'll catch you on the next episode.